And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Tulley?
Here.
Counselor Silly? You're muted, sir.
Here.
Thank you. Counselor Powers?
Here.
Counselor Scamperly?
Here.
Counselor Stevenson? Here. Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. I'll note for the public that Councilor Trim is traveling from Syracuse. She's on her way to the meeting, but we are starting without her tonight. We do not have any presentations tonight, so that brings us to public hearings. Before beginning public hearings tonight, those interested in addressing City Council during either public hearings or public participation, I remind you of the protocol to follow what's set forth in the meeting agenda. In brief, introduce yourself, name, community of residence. Please address City Council as a body and not direct comments specific to any councilor or staff. Please stay within the designated time period. Please do not make personal or slanderous remarks, and be reminded profanity is not permitted. So with that, we have 4 public hearings tonight. The first is regarding an ordinance to amend Chapter 27 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Ethics Code of. It is going to be Bill number 85, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding this, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raised hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, so I declare this public hearing closed. The next public hearing is regarding an ordinance to enter into a lease agreement with St. Lawrence Seaway RSA Cellular Partnership for wireless communications at 701 Roseal Street. It is going to be Bill 86, and I now open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raise hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
So I declare that public hearing closed. The next public hearing is regarding an ordinance to amend Chapter 215 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Water. It is going to be Bill number 92, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
Good evening. Good evening, Tanya Snyder. First, I would like to thank council and staff for reviewing the inequality of the water and sewer rates under the current code since I raised the issue again in May. My husband sent an email to all members of council last Thursday regarding the change proposed by staff. We would like to thank Mayor Tulley for the response and acknowledgement of our email. At this time, I am passing a copy of the email to the city clerk, and to be included in the minutes and passed to all members of council and city manager now. The proposed change seeks to charge home occupancies the same rate as commercial businesses, which is not a step towards equality. I have received FOIL responses on several small commercial businesses that also pay minimal commercial rates being proposed for home occupancies. These small commercial businesses operate a storefront operating 5 to 6 days per week with multiple employees and customers and hours ranging from morning till night, and still do not exceed the minimum commercial metered rate. My home occupancy only operates during the day hours, 3.5 days out of the week. And I would suspect that most daycare providers only operate Monday through Friday during daytime hours. We are not commercial businesses and should not be charged the same water and sewer rates as commercial business. The email my husband sent proposed rates more than residential, but less than minimum metered commercial rates, which does seem fair as long as city staff will be directed to send out 30 to 40 letters to the suspected home occupancies, will develop a procedure to continually monitor and pursue the payment of proper water and sewer rates by all home occupancies, and will be held accountable if that does not happen. I continue to question the enforceability of any code change to the policy developed, because no one can force a single residential property owner to allow anyone into their home to confirm if a person is operating a home occupancy. But the city manager has stated it will never be fair until we have the city is metered. That's a different discussion. In regards to the proposed definition change to the home occupancy, the proposed change is not clear and concise. The email sent by my husband provided several variations of the definition of a home occupancy that you can be found. And we question if the definition proposed to the council is sufficient to properly secure amounts of water and sewer revenue due to the city. Who are we citing? Who falls underneath the definition and who doesn't without clear and concise language? You can't leave this open to interpretation. This is what we are trying to fix with the new definition. If it's not clear, then we have accomplished nothing. And at that note, I question if 4% water and sewer rates proposed in the 2025 preliminary budget included the double rates paid by the previously reported 20 to 30 property owners, as well as the 30 to 40 suspected home occupancies who were previously reported who should be paying double rates, and does that increase in both rates included payments by home occupancies under the proposed changes. It is confusing to a taxpayer how the 2025 preliminary budget can propose 4% increase in both rates when the issue has not been resolved, with no determination who has been made on the home occupations will be paying and the revenue that will be generated in 2025. I respectfully ask all council to carefully consider their decision and vote this evening. You have all been provided a lot of information on this subject. So think about the equality and enforcement ability you make with your decision tonight. I have provided the city clerk with a copy of the statement and request that it be included in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Stewart. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Lawrence Child Care Council. For 32 years, we have been working in St. Lawrence County together with economic and workforce development groups to expand the supply of child care within the county. COVID was the big awakening for everybody, realizing how important child care was when our essential workers had to be at work, but they did not have child care. I'm not speaking specifically as a resident of the city of Ogdensburg, but I am speaking because we represent or we work with child care providers from all over St. Lawrence County. When you consider this, I would ask that you simply take a look at the fact that New York State Office of Children and Family Services, the North Country Regional Economic Development Council, the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency, the St. Lawrence County Workforce Development Board, NIPA, Corning, and many others have spent several years now trying to build up a community awareness of the need for childcare because it's a workforce and economic development issue. I'll bring that back home to the city of Ogdensburg. If the rates are enacted and if the rates are excessive, you may see childcare programs closing. If they close, how is that going to impact our workforce? How is it going to impact economic development issues locally? And I would also ask, what happens if you have city employees who may have to step away from their work because they have no childcare? Statistically, I think everyone knows you're going to spend between $4,000 and $7,000 to advertise, recruit, retrain a new employee. Is that an expense that you're looking to incur for people who are currently working? Again, I ask that you simply consider the economic development implications of what you're looking at doing and whether or not it will apply to home-based childcare providers. I've shared information with Mr. Cronus, and we've spoken on the phone. I appreciate him taking the time. That there is a social services law, SS 390, which is out there. And depending upon how this plays out, it may or may not come into play as to whether this can be imposed upon home-based childcare providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Good evening. William Snyder, 513 John Street here in Ogdensburg. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Manager. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for working on the water and sewer issues that have been raised. But after reading the ethics code and tonight's agenda, I believe that one of the councilors should not be able to vote tonight on amending the ordinance of Chapter 215 entitled Water of the Code of the City of Ogdensburg. I believe under Chapter 27, under Section 27-5, disclosure of interest, and Section 27-6, recusal and abstention, transfer of duties of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Ethics Code of, it would be considered an ethics violation due to a conflict of interest, since the councilor does operate a home business out of their home, which is the topic of the water ordinance. The decision may include them or exclude them financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. All right, now if anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raised hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
So I declare this public hearing closed. The next public hearing is regarding the city's proposed Restore New York 9 grant application and property assessment list for the strategic demolition, deconstruction, rehabilitation, and/or reconstruction of vacant, abandoned, condemned, and surplus properties within the city's designated brownfield opportunity area. It is going to be bill numbers 100 and 101, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
Good evening, guys. William Hosmer, 507 Elizabeth Street. I'm here representing Small City Brewing, which is one of the applicants for the Restore New York grant. And I'm here to ask that you support this resolution and applying for the grant. It'll help us speed the process along of rehabilitating 110 Lake Street, which is about a 5,000 square foot warehouse that is vacant. We're in the process of demolition of that right now. If you drive down by, you'll see some dumpsters. You'll see us clearing about 3.5 acres of land behind it. Maureen and I have spent a lot of time, energy, and money developing the Marina District, and this new site, along with our partners for this project, would move forward very quickly with the Restore New York grant. If we don't get the grant, we're still moving forward. It's just going to be a phased project, which may take 3, 4, 5, 6 years to build. If the Restore New York grant comes through, this is a project that will happen within the year. It is something we're moving forward with very quickly. And I'm here to ask you to support both projects, because anything we can do to develop the Marina District is a win-win for the city. It's a win for us. It's a win for all the parties. We all need to work together. And I think it's something we are doing down there as we develop this area. And we can't do it alone, Maureen and I, and we need other people such as this other project to move forward. So I encourage you to support both projects with Restore New York. And hopefully they're both awarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please use the raise hand feature in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you will have 5 minutes to speak.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
So I declare this public hearing closed. That brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes. Now, if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 5 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
All right, so with that, do we have any correspondence tonight?
We do not.
That brings us to our consent agenda. That the claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 20-2024 in the amount of $514,873.15, and library warrant number 20-2024 in the amount of $0, and capital fund warrant number 20-2024 in the amount of $11,284.35, and community development fund warrant number 20-2024 in the amount of $76.11, and community renewal fund warrant number 20-2024 in the amount of $0 as audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
approved.
We do not have any appointments tonight, so that brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronus.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance to amend Chapter 27 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Ethics Common Code.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion? I do have a couple of comments I want to share. First, the proposed change to the municipal code in the addition of a board of ethics is applicable to all officials and employees of the city. So the board of ethics role is not solely with possible ethical issues pertaining to members of city council only. And while the ordinance takes effect 10 days after publication of notice, I will suggest to council that appointment of members of the Board of Ethics takes place either in the second meeting of December or the first meeting of January. The terms of the board members are 1 year, so having members appointed at that time gives them the calendar year to serve. And something for consideration in terms of membership, at least one member must be elected or appointed officer with a majority made up of persons who are not officers or employees. And while we do not have to determine the makeup of the board tonight, presuming the resolution is adopted, I would ask council to consider the following: appointment of one elected official so that council is represented, appointment of one city official so that staff is represented, and 3 citizens who are not city officials or employees, with possible consideration that one of the 3 at-large persons, members of the board, would become the chairman of the board. So something to think about, presuming we pass this resolution tonight. Any further comment or discussion?
I can support the composition of the board. I think it's a good representation of everyone, and I would support that composition.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Silly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronis.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with St. Lawrence Seaway RSA Cellular Partnership for wireless communications at 701 Russell Street.
I'll move that.
Second.
Can you just give a quick overview of this, Fonda?
Certainly. This company has requested to put telecommunications equipment on the tower there. And it's a revenue contract for these.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Silly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
An ordinance amending chapter 215 entitled Water of the Code of the City of Ogdensburg.
Would someone care to introduce this?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion by council.
I have a few comments or a question actually for Shane to start with. But I'll preface that with, I think we as council are learning more and more about our water and sewer rates and how they've been developed and how they are billed and what determines how we are billing those. But I would be interested in knowing, so with our commercial rates, it depends on the size of the supply line that comes into the building. Do we have an idea of what the most of our supply lines that go into like residences would be?
Homeowners, most of them are probably 3/4 inch.
3/4 inch? Okay. So I look at this and I look at the definition, and there's still some things here that are not enforceable. When we say regularly, how do we ascertain that something is regular? Is that once a week, once a day, 10 times a month? As far as the definition applies to where the commercial or office space is regularly used for business. I think it's still too loose with that. And when you do look, and I've had a lot of phone calls, a lot of Facebook messages, text messages, and I'm happy to hear from people about this. But when I look at it, and I too have looked at some of the minimum bills that commercial rates are being charged to some of the active businesses in our community, meaning parking lots with people coming and going and people employed and everything. They're not always hitting their minimum number. So now we're going to take a home occupation and do that. So I would like us to consider this, that when we look at the 3/4 inch, right now a flat rate for the city is $402. $402 a year for the flat rate. At the 3/4, that would be $536. So they'd be paying $136 more. It's a lot less than when we were charging double water and sewer rates, but that was not very fair when we were doing that, when we look at what the commercial rates are. So I think we still have a lot of work to do with this. I'd like to hear what other counselors feel about this, but I think we still have a lot more work to do with this. And I wish we could have the presentation about the meters before we made this decision, because I think everyone thinks we're going to put a meter in and that's the amount that people are going to be charged. I don't think they understand that there's going to be minimum amount per charge for those. There's going to be EDUs, which are equivalent dwelling units, that will be assigned to different properties, which will put us in the same situation. So if we don't get the definitions right now, it's going to affect us even if we end up metering. So I still have some concerns about this. I hate that we keep putting this off with decisions, but I think there's still a lot of discussion. And I am also very concerned with how we're going to enforce this, because it seems that the people that come forward and have done the right thing are the ones that always pay the most. And I don't know how we're going to enforce this with the small businesses that are not coming forward, whether they're not aware that they're supposed to, or they're just not doing it. So I have concerns with that.
Anyone else?
Yes. So I stated a few weeks ago, I was against the double charge, period. I still am. Based on the fact that we have no data to substantiate anything. I mean, we don't have meters, so I don't know what we're comparing. I've seen letters that people have sent in, and there is letters suggesting that we keep the double charge and people are using, but even the letters don't have any data. You know, I don't know what the baseline is. Family of 6, family of 10, family of 8, and there's just no data. So I'm completely against the charge, the double charge, myself. I just think if somebody's operating out of their home, then that's fine. I mean, unless it's a special circumstance. I'm not seeing any special circumstances. I don't think daycare providers are special circumstances. In terms of if you were to compare it to a family of 6 or 8, 10, who knows what. I'm just not seeing it. Not seeing the justification. So I'd prefer not to do that. I do like the new definition, but and I support, as I said, I think at the last meeting, just simply cease and desist collecting anything right now. I also like the letter that was given by Mr. and Mrs. Snyder, and she presented to us again tonight. If there is going to be any extra charge, rather than the 317, which is the same as a commercial, I think that he said, or they said it was fair, they said that in their letter, if we charged half of that way you're halfway between a commercial business and a residential flat rate. You're at 158.75. I think that's more fair, even though I still don't see the equity. You know, so I would prefer to not have the double rate, period. If anything else, I would like to see this amended to be the 158.75, or the one half, if we were to divide it in two and split the difference between a home or residential business and a commercial business. And that's where I stand on this.
Right, anyone else on council?
Yeah, Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
Having a meter presentation, I'm all for it. But let's, you know, in the cold hard reality here is we're not going to be seeing meters for some time. They cost a great deal of money. You know, if Andrea can keep her magic going now and get us a grant somehow to get some water meters, that'd be great. But I don't foresee that anytime with her agenda now with the Restore New York and some of the things that we have on the horizon here for the city of Ogdensburg. I have some issues with enforcement. I have some issues with the fact that our code enforcement isn't what it once was. And it's just, I'm stuck with on the double rate. I'm not a big fan of that right now. I'd like to see us, I mentioned this before, get our code in order somewhat in the very near future and start to address some, not just this aspect of water, but other aspects of our code as well, which is in need of a deep dive, in my opinion. So I'm kind of stuck. I'm hard pressed to, you know, I don't know how we're going to monitor it. I don't know how you monitor a small business. I'm not a businessman, but you know, I can surely see the value in it, but also at the other end of the spectrum, Mr. Snyder, or not Snyder, Mr. Stewart makes a great point about childcare, and that's a big issue in the workforces, and that has a big play, more of a play since COVID, as he mentioned, than it does now. So I honestly don't know where I'm going to vote on this at the moment.
All right, anyone else?
Yes, Mayor.
Yep.
I look at this resolution as providing a much needed definition of what a home business is. I'm not sure we've covered everything. I'm looking at it as a compromise as to what the situation is now. And I'm afraid that if we vote this particular resolution down, our code calls for the continued inequity to continue as we go along, and we haven't solved anything or given any relief at all to anybody. And I feel that we could further adjust this at a later time if necessary.
Thank you, Storm. Question for Shane and or Fondor staff. In addressing the concerns about enforcement and identifying home residents, small businesses that currently aren't being subject to dual billing or aren't receiving dual billing, how are we going about determining where those businesses are going forward?
I'll take that. It's not going to be the easiest process without any question, because there's just not one database that we have to search. So we're going to utilize state databases, we'll utilize the county DBA list, and we will identify those that are potential home businesses, and we'll send out letters asking them to attest one way or the other. This is something that will be ongoing over time. We did look through some of our files, so we think we've identified some potential properties. We'll start there, and then we'll expand that view and that analysis to the other databases I just mentioned.
And this ordinance deals with more than just dual billings, correct? In other words, a residence that has more than one office, right? More than one, whatever unit, as described in here, each commercial or office unit is treated as a separate unit. So if there's more than one office unit in a residence, are we looking at, how do we calculate what the bill, what the fee would be for someone with a residence in 2 offices, residence in 3 offices?
I think it would probably, my understanding would be calculated the same as if an apartment house had 4 units. Each unit we build as an individual unit.
Using what rate?
The flat rate or whatever rate you guys come up with. So right now, if someone has an apartment house with 4 units in it, they're charged 4 flat rates per homeowner. And then as a single family resident, just charged 1 rate.
Question on that?
Yeah, please.
Is that true for all apartment buildings across the city?
Unless they're considered having a business in it, then they have a meter. Other than that, yes, they pay per unit. To my knowledge, everyone does, at least the ones that are registered.
Okay. So does HUD get charged per apartment?
I cannot answer what HUD pays per apartment.
I sent that email out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I have answers for you. I just haven't been able to cut them all. The answers are from several different departments, and I just haven't been able to.
I know it's busy this time. Watch it going on there. Right. So, but I mean, I just think when you start looking at equity, if you're going to charge, if we're going to charge, the city is going to charge per unit, then it should be per unit. If the way I'm reading this particular bill, if somebody has a home business, period, just one in their home, where they have customers coming and going, things like that, then it is 1 bill, not 2, correct?
Correct.
Which is good. Okay. And then before we pass this, if it gets close here, I'm going to suggest we do the amendment to the Snyder proposal that's halfway between a resident and a commercial business. But that's just what I wanted to say right now. Sorry if I took that to a place I wasn't expecting to go, but
No, that's fine.
all right.
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
So I just wanted to remind us all that when we look at this, landlords are business owners too. And many of them are struggling terribly, and they might have a 4-unit building that have 4 people living in it. And they would be paying 4 times the residential rate for this. So we have to look at that inequity too, because many of them are struggling. So if you have a 4-unit building, you're going to pay 4 times what the residential rate is for that building. And you might have 4 people there. But we also have to remember that we are a city that is struggling with finances. So we also have to be aware of how this will be equitable to the people that use the water and sewer in the city, but also how can we balance this with what it costs to produce that water and clean the waste that we develop. So there's a balance there that we have to look at. And there are many homes in our city that you have 1 or 2 people living in, that it's always been a balance of somebody has 6 people in their house and some people have 2. So there's always been an inequity with that. And even when if we go to a meter at some point, there'll be inequities there because there's a base fee that we charge for the certain amount of gallons. So there's never going to be a perfect solution with this. It's just getting it as close as we can to being as fair as we can while still being mindful of what our budget has to be. Because if we keep reducing here, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, we have to realize that that will push the basic rate up because that rate can change. Thank you.
We have Councilor Powers. You have
Yes,
something else to add?
yes, please, thank you. So let's take a 4-unit apartment house that may be listed as a business, right? Or it may be owned by an LLC or a corporation of some sort. Would that have 4 water meters?
No, they don't.
They will.
Residentials don't have meters. They just pay 4 flat rates.
So that would, all right, so the water meters don't apply as far as, okay.
Unless
All right.
unless they state they have a commercial business inside that apartment building, then they would get the meter rate.
Okay,
And they'd have a meter installed and then they'd be on the meter rate there.
all right, just to piggyback Councilor Stevenson's comment here to an extent, I mean, we live on property taxes here, right? I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And, we pay a lot of property taxes here in the city of Ogdensburg. And it just adding an additional rate to a potential 4-unit apartment house or 6-unit or even a 2-level home with maybe 2 units above stairs or downstairs. It's just, it basically just falls back on many of my concerns from the beginning with enforcement and putting together a good solid proposal.
Just a couple more comments from me. At a previous meeting, I did suggest consideration of eliminating dual rates. After reviewing comments from citizens, reviewing the discussion at previous meetings among city staff and council, I am now persuaded maintaining a commercial residential mixed structure is appropriate. The current proposal before us would result in a home business who is currently only paying a residential user fee. Moving to this proposed fee would be an additional cost of $6.50 a week. So I don't think that's overly dramatic, but at the same time, I am intrigued, as is Councilor Scamperly, with the proposal submitted to us by the Snyders that would reduce the annual fee from the current proposal is a $1,264 annual user fee for water sewer. If the Snyder proposal was considered, that reduces it to $1,105, about $160 reduction further. So a very, at the end of the day, a modest increase in over the residential fee, but something that I would hope could be absorbed. And I do think the revision in the language with definition is a step forward as suggested by Councilor Sill. Any other discussion?
So Mayor, are you suggesting we amend this to the halfway between a residential flat rate and a commercial business? As I commented on a moment ago,
I
which would keep it a modest increase.
will make a motion to amend this proposal to read in the second paragraph, each commercial or office unit is treated as a separate unit for billing purposes at a rate of equivalent to 50% of the current residential flat rate for water and sewer, or for water, sorry, and 50% of the flat metered rate for water.
Is that, are you finished with your motion?
I'm trying to determine whether the remaining language needs to remain as determined by the city engineer, director of public works, or city manager. All right, so that's my proposal. Each commercial office unit is treated as a separate unit for billing purposes at a rate of 50% of the residential flat rate water and 50% of the flat metered rate for water as determined by the city engineer, director of public works, or city manager.
Does that matter? Bring it lower than the residential rate?
What about 1.5?
The total based on 2024 rates, and again, the numbers will increase by 4% if we approve that at a future meeting. Brings the total, for lack of a better word, dual rate to 1105 in water and sewer.
I guess the question is, if we say half, then we're not saying, shouldn't we say something about the base unit plus half for any additional businesses that are located in the dwelling?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I think your language is going to make it lower.
All right, let me ask this then.
I think we're on the same page with what we want.
Would there be consensus of council to take that approach? Let's
Yes.
start there.
Yes.
Yes. How do you feel about that, Councilor Silly?
I can live with that.
All right, then I would suggest that we table this for tonight, and so that we can work with staff in developing the language to achieve the goal of the consensus that we have at this point with regards to what the user fee would be. Is that
Agreed.
preferred? Okay. Any suggestion about any further revision beyond that? All right, so at this point, I'll make a motion to table this.
I'll second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Silly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Approved.
Mayor, can I make one quick comment on that?
Yes,
before we
please.
move on? And that comment would be as a resident nerd on numbers that I am, but also as your city manager, I would be very uncomfortable in having numbers presented to you that haven't been vetted or analyzed. So in addition to working with the language on how to work that out, I would suggest that the team and I work through and give you some ideas of what those numbers go through. I would be remiss if I didn't say to you, making a decision on the fly on numbers without analysis would maybe not be in the best interest of the city.
I think that's a fair point. Thanks for raising it, Fonda. All right, so with that, our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
Good evening.
Oh, sorry, the vote on the motion to table.
Yeah.
It was tabled, yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, we did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. Andrea, please.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application for up to 3.5 million through the Round 9 Restore New York Communities Initiative through Empire State Development Corporation for the demolition and redevelopment of 119, 135 West River Street in partnership with At the Docks LLC.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
yes,
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application for up to $935,500 through Round 9 Restore New York Communities Initiative through Empire State Development Corporation for the redevelopment of 110 Lake Street in partnership with Small City Brewing Company and William Hosmer as managing member.
I'll
So
move that.
Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I missed the second.
Second.
Thank you,
Counselor Stevenson.
thank you. Counselor Selly,
yes,
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Controller Angela Gray.
Good evening. This is a resolution to authorize a ban funding for completion of the city's required lead service line inventory project in the amount of $2,688,300.
I'll move that.
Second.
And please give us a quick overview on this, Angela.
So there was a grant that's been awarded through the bipartisan structure law lead service line replacement funds for $2 million. The project estimate cost is $2,688,300. And we would need to have a ban in place to cover the cash flow of this project. At the point in time when the project is complete, the grant funds have been received. Any residual over the grant would be converted and anticipated to be converted to a bond.
Thank you. Questions or discussion? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
yes,
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Counselor Scamper.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to approve a refund request for water overpayments for one city parcel.
I'll move that.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I have a concern, Mayor.
Yes.
As much as I am disappointed that the city made this error, and that I fully believe that we should be reimbursing Ms. Rufa for these fees, I cannot in good faith go against the city code, which has only a 1-year look back, or the advice of our city attorney or city manager.
Thank you.
I have similar concerns, and I think that it is not right that this person wasn't charged properly, but I think we need to change the code if we are going to do this and not just make a decision without changing that code. Because there are other people in the past that have had the same issue and were refunded 1 year. It is a problem, it isn't fair, but we need to change the code and not just do this because someone made us aware and we're doing it for one person. And what are we gonna do when the next person comes forward and the next person? We need to change the code.
I think in the future, we should change the code.
Any further discussion or comment? Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
No.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Mayor Tulley,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
No,
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Controller Angela Gray.
This is a resolution authorizing the processing of time-sensitive payments prior to city council consent agenda approval.
Move that.
Second.
And again, just a quick overview.
Sure. From time to time, the due date on bills and request for payment comes before the council has it scheduled to approve those bills. So we are assessed interest, which we call and get refunded, but those good graces only go so far. So we're asking for authorization to, in the event of a time-sensitive payment, pay it ahead of time with it to appear on the next consent agenda.
Yeah, it only makes sense. I mean, we're looking, with our second meeting in December and the second week in December, going 3 or 4 weeks before our first meeting in January, certainly makes sense to give you the pre-authorization as properly processed and approved. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tulley?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Approved.
Brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business presented for council tonight?
I guess I'll bring up the issue of the wastewater treatment plant and the calls that we've all been getting, rightfully so. We've all experienced it. There's something more going on there than just what the explanations have been. There's got to be that it's this bad. One question I would have, because I've been racking my brain, because I've been immersed almost, I feel physically with the odors that have been happening with this issue for many years. And when the cheese plant was demolished, when the silos were emptied, did that waste get hauled away or did that get washed through our wastewater treatment system?
I'm going to have to defer to staff on that.
Because I heard that it was put through our sewer system. I hope that's wrong.
It was a combination of both.
Okay.
Some was put through the sewer system and some was hauled off-site. But that took place 3-4 months ago.
Right. But we were told, and we've always been told, that that was highly toxic, contaminant source of whey that had been left there for so many years. And we all know that. We talk about digesters. What is that? It's biology doing its job. And perhaps if it was, and I'm not an engineer, but I'm just trying to rack my brain with why, if that was put through the system and it changed the whole biological setting of our wastewater treatment plant, could that have been something that upset it? How much, can we talk to the engineers about that?
The way was hauled away.
The way was hauled away.
The small tank on the corner, that the full part was cut in half and hauled off-site. And I believe Andrew might be able to answer more, but everything that went through the system was tested, analyzed, and was safe to go through within our city limits per our code.
Do we have any additional information about where we're at? Because it seems to be getting worse, not any better.
I'll start and then Shane, I'll ask you to fill in where my knowledge gaps are. There are many in this circumstance. So obviously this has been an ongoing issue. I called for an emergency meeting team along with members of the Development Authority and actually EGR, the consultant working on both our project and Hubleton's, to get together to talk about this issue. Additionally, I visited the plant both Friday and Monday to try and get a better handle, at least logically in my mind, what is going on. And so I'll probably in more layman's terms take what the last presentation was and maybe augment a little information to it. And again, Jane, jump in where I get it not perfectly right. Basically, the plant over the last several months has been running kind of at the limit. What I mean by that is, generally speaking, the amount of sludge at any point in time isn't usually in the 3 to 4 foot range, and it's been running close to the 8 foot range. Still within parameters, but our team likes to run it perfectly and make sure that it stays consistent over time. Seeing that it wasn't at 3 feet and closer to 8 feet, that's when they decided to introduce a polymer to be able to bring that down. I can't tell you the science on it, but the end result is supposed to be to take the sludge from 8 feet back down to a more manageable 3 feet and get that plant away from kind of that red line, that concerning number, right? Anything over 9 we get concerned about, is that right? So if you're at 8, you're a lot closer to that line than you are when you're at 3. They did what they showed at the last meeting on the 15th, the jar testing, right, to try and get the proper polymer in the proper concentrations. They were able to do that. When they introduced the polymer, that didn't work. And the result of that basically was that all of the quote bugs that were in there really ended up dying and destroyed. So what we have now is in our 2 aeration tanks, we have septic conditions. In reality, what's happened is over the last few days, they've concentrated, Dan has, on trying to get one of those tanks in a better position. And so if you were actually to go visit, you'd go to the north tank, and then you would have a septic odor. If you go to the south tank, that one is beginning to improve. Now, beginning to improve means that you go slowly, little by little, to get that one back into shape. Then you can take the other aeration tank out. Long story short, and I know nobody wants to hear this answer, is this is going to take some more time to get squared away. This is biology and this is science, and there are no exact sciences in these circumstances. Trust me, nobody wants to be able to have this kind of an explanation or for anything to happen. We want this plant to be running perfectly smooth over time. You're always going to have some hiccups. This is a very large hiccup. I certainly feel for our residents who are having trouble. We are going to, from city administration standpoint, stay much closer and on top of this. I talked earlier about we were going to have quarterly meetings. We're going to have significantly more meetings, probably on a weekly basis, at least until this passes, and then probably more than quarterly, just to make sure everybody's on track. One of the things that we can do immediately, it doesn't necessarily help the odor, but what it can do is if we communicate better as a group and making sure that everybody's on the same page, we can at least provide information to folks. And I think that's probably one of the most frustrating things for everybody. Is nothing worse than to get out there and well, it stinks today. You know, there's a lot of things that we can't control. One of the things we can control is the dissemination of information. So we are going to work on that while the experts and the scientists work on getting this plant up and running back healthy as quickly as possible.
The only thing I would add is we're dealing with multiple different smells. So first smell was the CSO tank. So just as that we got the bypass fixed there, as that was fixing, they're trying to get the solids to settle quicker. They brought chemists in and said, okay, let's try this different type of polymer. Everything in the jar test, to Mr. Cronus's point, worked. Then they introduced it and it did the total opposite of it. Like they would have never introduced it if they didn't think, once it was in the jar test, it worked. So then anything we did prior to that, it killed it all off. So basically what they did when you say in the north tank, south tank, they shut off, killed everything in it. Now they're reintroducing the new bugs and slowly mixing the other stuff back into it. The next few days are hoping by Wednesday, Thursday, if that comes back healthy, they're going to shut off the north tank, kill that off. That should reduce the odor there. Unfortunately, we want to get information out there. We don't know if the bypass actually worked for the smell in the CSO tank because of the smoke smell. And we were dewatering at double the rate that we normally would to try to get the bad sludge out, which did produce a bad smell too. So we cut that back tremendously right now to about half.
So do we know why we are at that 8-foot level? Because when this plant was designed with the reconfiguration, it was designed to hold a lot more capacity than what our average usage is. And we haven't had those significant rain events that we were having in June and July. So why were we at that higher level that caused this polymer to be added into it?
I think they've, ever since what I'm understanding, I could be misspeaking, the Development Authority would probably say it better. Ever since we brought on Hewlett, we've been on the edge. So they've been fighting it the whole time. And it was almost like a perfect storm. The capacity to the plant is the same as it was before we did the upgrade. We just had extra capacity to be able to accept Hewlett's waste.
That's
So
what
the
I thought.
capacity hasn't changed.
Yeah, our capacity never changed with the new
The
pump.
only capacity
I didn't
change
think
is
so.
the CSO tank for, rain events. That was a part of the, design with the DEC to have that. So in a rain event, Hewlett's going to be stored there at the 300,000 they have. And then I think it was $1 million for us or something like that for art to stop discharging into the river. That's the only extra capacity, but the process through the plant has the same capacity.
Oh, I'm gonna go back in my notes because I attended those meetings regularly for 3 years, 2.5 years. And we were told that we expanded this to make it regionally, and that's why we accepted Hubleton. Because with the added tank to handle the overflow, that we would be fine. And that if we still could actually expand more regionally with our wastewater treatment, we could actually expand more with accepting waste.
Correct.
But if we're at this level now at the 8 with just Hubleton, I don't see how that's happening.
That's the level of solids aren't suspended down. That doesn't change the
Right.
capacity of what we can take through the plant. So that's just a settling issue that they're trying to get under control.
Yeah, so from a capacity standpoint, I think the number we're using is 3.5 million and our capacity is 6 total. So we're way under what we can do. I think this is a process challenge that needs to, that our experts need to work on and get it squared away. I don't say that tongue in cheek or flippantly at all. They have a pretty big job on their hands. And it's our job to make sure that it gets done. And we haven't done as well as I would have liked to. Unfortunately, we can't really change the laws of biology or science in this particular case.
So just a quick question here with the bypass that we installed, we don't have really the results from that yet, whether or not, am I correct to assume that?
To me, it's a different odor.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody were down there when it was.
Yeah.
There is a significant difference in the odor.
A whole lot stronger, for
Yeah.
sure.
But they've had 3 or 4 different chemists come in, different companies that are salesmen, but very knowledgeable with degrees and that work through the state, and they made some suggestions. EDR came up, spent the whole day last week, made suggestions. And if you were able to go down there, you could definitely see the difference in the 2 tanks. It's a difference between just the length of the front of that podium there, and there is a difference in the smell.
Well, I definitely think we need to get more information out to the citizens because people are calling me and messaging me that they can't even go out and rake their leaves because they're becoming nauseous if they live anywhere near that plant. And that's just really, that's not healthy. So we need to get better information out so they understand exactly why it's happening. That's a different issue than what the other one was and what we're doing proactively on a regular basis to try to fix this. I asked that we could probably do that.
I'm glad to see that we're moving along, instead of these quarterly reviews, that we're sitting down and we're having, and I know your schedules are extremely busy, but ultimately at the end of the day, this is a quality of life issue for many of our citizens down in the city. Potential health issues as well. And I guess, what's DC playing in any of this? Anything, they have any engineers that would come up and?
They were there today, actually, and
Were they?
walked through the plant, gave us some suggestions. We've been doing some air monitoring outside the plant.
Okay.
And they're gonna take those all week and submit them. And I think we're giving daily updates to DC. That started Saturday. So they were there. They just said it looks, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but we're doing all we can do to stay the course. Don't want to make a dramatic difference, jump ahead and then have to start the process all over.
Yeah, and if I could add, the regional director of DEC called me today and offered his assistance, whatever that they could do. So it's nice to have them make that offer, and when it's appropriate, we'll certainly cash in that check.
Who might that be? Another time.
They can help me. I'd like them to help
Randy.
ASAP.
Randy, something is it?
They might have the resources. We don't have it. There's people that step in,
Is there any resources available? Is there anyone the state or
That was what he just said, Rick.
Is
DEC.
there financial component to this?
No, it's the science. We put the resources in. Those are free, right? So we pay for those and we bandied about a number of different potential, not solutions, but try mitigation efforts. And some we've said, okay, let's do them. Some it just doesn't make any sense. So I think everybody's putting their heads together. And I think if DEC's team, when they were out there today, they spent a couple hours out, if they had some suggestions, I'd positive they would have shared, hey, what about this, what about that? But this is pretty scientific when it comes down to it. And it's just a question of where are we at this moment in time? They take their readings and look back and say, okay, this is our current condition, and here's what we're going to do about it. And the next day, we can do the same.
It's a good breakdown in your update for us.
So there's no other city that has this issue?
That's one question we asked this morning, and they said they've reached out, Development Authority has. But every issue is, they thought they found one, but theirs end up being on a different treatment process. So they're reaching out as far as they can. I mean, it is their industry. They're probably some of the top in the state that do it. And they're just struggling. They tried to fix one aspect of it. It really.
Well, this particular specific.
And everybody's plans are different. So everybody's processes are different. There's more steps in ours than some of the other ones.
Well, I think that it's important you increase the frequency of meetings between staff and Dank and whoever else is helping us with this. And I also think it'll be important in communicating to the public that we not get too far into the weeds and make the commentary as understandable as possible, because I know the detail I'm getting, I'm drowned. I'm just not an expert in these fields, and I don't understand science, and so it needs something pretty basic to help someone like me understand issue communications to the community.
Sure. If I could just add one thing, we did do air testing today, and so we hit all the important spots right around there, probably 13 or 14 intersections moving through, and there are no hazardous materials or odors in the air in and around the plant. As a matter of fact, the plant has some sensors. If it was emitting on the inside, those sensors would go off, and they have gone off. So yes, there is an odor. Yes, it's not great. None of us are happy about it, but I've been assured that there are no hazardous materials in this. But we will continue to monitor the air. We'll keep the data, and if anything changes, obviously, we will contact the proper authorities and get that information out to the public.
I had a number of text messages around the 10 o'clock time frame this morning that it was very unbearable. So I don't think that, I know that we say it's not detrimental. There's no toxins there, but to people that can't function in their property because of it is pretty detrimental to them.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I just, from a science standpoint, we can measure the hazardous materials. It's hydroxysulfide, I think is the chemical.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we measure, there is zero in the air, not even a trace. It's been zero. So I think that's just an important piece of information. Aside the odor and it bothering people, that I completely get. I just wanted to make sure that the two are separate in a way. Obviously, they're together in general, but we should talk about the hazardous part of, and then there's the discomfort from the odor, and those I think are two different things to talk about. Although I do get that the public may not look at it that way.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Shane.
Any other old business? So it brings us to new business. Is there any new business come before council tonight? Right, hearing none, that brings us to items of discussion. Does anyone have any items for discussion tonight? All right, I do have a couple. City Council continues to invite citizens interested in serving on the City Charter Review Commission to submit an application by the end of the week. We hope to appoint the commission at the November 12th meeting, but the charter states the commission shall consist of 12 citizens. I know personally, having served in two charter commissions, this is an opportunity to learn more about city government, to contribute toward giving direction to government and its efforts to provide services desired by our residents in an efficient and hopefully affordable manner. This Wednesday, October 30, 6 p.m. here in City Council chambers, we will host our second workshop to review the proposed 2025 city budget. And this meeting is open to the general public. And 3rd, Thursday is Halloween, so I ask our citizens to look out for our young ghouls and goblins as they trick or treat that night. All right, and with that, that brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 2 minutes.
Good evening. William Schneider. 513 John Street. So I want to thank you for at least looking at and considering some of the stuff that I had sent to you. I appreciate that very much. Spent a lot of time on that. So I do appreciate that. I do agree with Mrs. Counselor Stevenson about the definition. I think, hopefully when you take a look at it, kind of revamp it, reword it, whatever you might do with it. I think there should be a clear definition of what a home based business is. If not, we're gonna be back here again arguing about that. So it needs to define who, just clear. I just think it should be a good definition of what a home based business is. Provide some, those are just things, to be honest with you, is things you can Google. I Googled them and that's what came up. So, if it's too vague, we'll be back here again in a few months arguing about who's going to pay it, who isn't. So I got other things to do. So I don't want to get back in, I just don't want to see it cycle back around. I just think it needs to be clear and concise and defined. Just what you do, this is it, you pay it. That's it, you don't. That's all. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Can I have that something here? When will the next meeting be for, do we know? Instead of me going up to the podium for that,
City council.
well, that maybe we have, since we tabled this,
Next regular city council meeting is Tuesday, November 12th.
so when you're talking about the budget,
It won't be subject to the discussion Wednesday.
oh, it won't, no, I think that's nice that you're doing the budget, isn't it?
No, it's a regular city council meeting.
At least you meet November 12th. There's a public hearing for the.
Yes, public
Oh,
hearing.
okay,
Yes.
okay, and let's have something to do with it.
All right, now if anyone attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 2 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Wendy Hamilton, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Good evening. It wasn't quick enough during the public hearing for the water, so I'm just going to make my few points now, if you don't mind. I appreciate that you're trying to be fair, and it seems that this council's first 9 months have all been about trying to right the wrongs of the past. And I would just caution you that it's not always going to be fair, as some people have already mentioned. But as an individual who, I live in a house, I am a single person in here paying a flat rate compared to, whoever has got 6 or 8 people in their house, or even 2. Or how about pools? Why don't we enact a pool tax? How much water is being put into that pool and they're just paying a flat rate? There's all kinds of inequity, and I think that you can take it to extremes. So I caution you to, as you go through and think about this, that you have to do what's practical, enforceable, and continuable for the future, that you don't set yourself up for precedents that you can't maintain. As far as the definition goes, I do agree it is kind of vague. You may want to include something particular that it is not, which a home business is not a remote worker using their home to work for somebody remotely, or a home business is not someone who has a home office where they work from time to time. So, I think that sometimes gets confused. with home occupancy. Home businesses or home occupancy is, you know, there are definitions available in all of our states, and in many of the cities and towns I've lived, they've had definitions, and it's something you can copy from somewhere else. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy.
I do not see any other hands raised, Mayor.
All right, this time, I'll make a resolution to adjourn to executive session, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requested executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
I'll move that.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tully?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Approved.
And I will introduce a resolution to adjourn to executive session, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Augsburg City Council to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And whereas New York State Open Meeting Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, please call the roll.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Tully?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Approved.
We do not anticipate any action following executive session, so I'll make a motion to adjourn from executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Meeting adjourned.
Your Honor, should we tell the students to come down if they need to? Oh, they're coming down anyway.
He's gone. He's gone. He left.